it's a serious and life-threatening disease that many pet owners don't even know about. Dr. Ruth Roberts from Sundog Cat Moon is here to talk about bloat, what it is and the symptoms associated with it. First, one would assume bloat, similar to what we have, a lot of gas developing in the stomach, feel uncomfortable. You start to feel uncomfortable, a lot of pressure. Similar to our animals?
It's actually in animals, it's specifically in the stomach, whereas for us it may be through the entire GI tract. And certainly they can have that experience as well, which is not comfortable, certainly. But bloat is life-threatening because the stomach becomes so distended with air, sometimes gas, things of that nature. And you can see from the pictures, there's a stomach that's sort of filled up with air, and the real danger is not so much the bloating, but the twisting or volvulus that can happen afterwards, and that becomes an immediately life-threatening situation.
What are the symptoms in our mainly with dogs or dogs and cats?
Mostly dogs.
Mostly dogs.
I can't think of a cat I've seen that's bloated, but I'm sure there's somebody out there.
And we'll get into what series of dogs are most acceptable to this. But,
So the symptoms are retching, vomiting with no production, severe drooling, panting, pacing, things of that nature, things that would indicate discomfort or severe pain for a pet. And also, most remarkably, the abdomen looks terribly distended. And literally what's happened is the stomach has become so full of air that it's pushing against the rest of the organs in the abdomen.
Well, very uncomfortable for our little friends.
Pretty miserable stuff, yes.
We've got a picture there of a dog that, is that a Doberman?
It's probably a Great Dane because that's the most commonly affected breed.
Excuse me, Great Dane.
Yeah, but you can see that this poor dog's abdomen is terribly distended right after its rib cage. And you can see that this guy is not feeling good. So he's on some monitoring equipment because one of the most serious side effects of the volvulus part of bloat or gastric dilatation and volvulus is that you cut off blood supply to the stomach and also impinge the vagal nerve, which also helps the heart know what to do. So that's part of why it becomes life-threatening so quickly.
So things start to get confusing in the body of the dog, especially larger dogs?
Especially large breeds. So Great Danes are sort of the biggest breed that we think of with bloat, but any of the larger breeds, all the way down to the standard poodle. Bloat can happen in any breed, even the small breeds, and the risks seem to go up for the other breeds as they get older. In the large breeds, it can happen sort of any time, but generally we seem to see it somewhere between 4 and 12 years of age.
When this happens, what do you do? And then we'll get into how we can actually prevent it.
Right. So the most important thing is that if you think your dog is bloating, is to drop everything and run either to the emergency clinic or to your veterinarian. Because this disease is very difficult to treat and often requires a critical care stay, it's often best to head directly to an emergency facility that has advanced monitoring capabilities.
You were saying the symptoms. One was panting. Well, all dogs pant to a degree, but you're noticing excess panting.
Excess panting, anxiety, pacing, can't get comfortable. Those are the sorts of things. Yes.
So they'd lay down and just continue to squirm around trying to find that soft spot.
Might or start to get back up and pace around. They just can't, you know, it's one of those situations where they just cannot get comfortable and can't get in a position that's easy for them.
How do we treat this?
So there's, you know, when it's happening, again, it's a life-threatening situation, and that requires intervention by a veterinarian. Often with a volvulus or twist of the stomach, it requires surgery. And there is a good number of these guys that do not make it through the surgery because it it affects so many organs so quickly.
Most importantly, how do we prevent it now?
So, but before we ever get there,
that's what you're always looking for.
That's kind of what we're looking for. So part of it is making sure to feed. If you're feeding dry food, don't let the dog tank up on water. There's been a lot of discussion about whether to elevate the food or not. There's not a great deal that's been 100% effective. For the breeds that tend to be affected, we do recommend considering a gastropexy, which is literally a surgery wherein the stomach is tacked to the inside of the rib cage so that the dog may still bloat, that stomach may fill up with air, but it can't twist and create that serious life-threatening situation. Right.
Okay. So you could still treat the bloating without having that twisting effect, which is a lot better for the dog.
Exactly. And then you may require some time at the emergency clinic. Often things like Gas-X, interestingly, will help resolve the bloat, but that's a much less serious condition.
Sundog Cat Moon. always ahead of everybody's time with taking care of our pets. We appreciate it, Dr. Ruth.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so very much. All right, we're turning it over now to Aaron for Trial Tuesday.